Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Kinross-shire Committee, Thursday, the 15th of May. I think we'll start by doing a quick round robin on the tables and then on the screen so that everybody knows who they are. We've got some new faces tonight. So do you want to start, Lee?
Certainly, yeah. Lee Haxton. I was challenged on my job title earlier, so I had to go and check it, but it did change. Strategic Planning, Performance and Risk Team Leader, open brackets, Operations, close brackets, lead officer for this committee.
Beat that.
Right, beat that.
Darryl McKeown, Senior Engineer in the Traffic and Network Team.
Blair Watt, the Route Safety Project Officer.
Francis Princhford-Gillespie, Chair of Police from Blair Adam Community Council.
Drew Smart, representing Glen Park. Richard Waters, Councillor on this committee.
I'm Dave Cuthbert, Councillor and the convener of this committee.
And Chris Collins, I'm here on behalf of David West, who has a family engagement tonight, sends his apologies. And I've got to report back faithful everything you people said, so be very clear.
It's being recorded anyway.
Oh, is it really?
Oh yeah, it's all live. It's on,
live.
It's on the internet. People are watching this from home.
Hi, I am Nicola Marchant. I am stepping in for Sarah Bruce-Jones, representing Fossaway District Community Council.
Hi, Steve McDonald, Economic Development Manager, Business, Place and Investment, Perth Kinross Council.
Hi, I'm Emily Queen, City and Town Centre Management Officer, Perth Kinross Council, and I'm in Steve's team.
Okay, going to the screen. I'm going to do it in the order that's on my screen. Audrey, do you want to say hello? She doesn't normally do that. She's maybe not there at all.
Hello. No, I am here.
Thank you, Audrey. Love it. Jacqueline Meikle, is that the right pronunciation?
That's correct. Thank you. Hi, I'm Jacqueline Meikle. I'm ASN Transformation Programme Manager for Perth Kinross Council.
That's grand. Fiona, do you want to introduce yourself?
I am Fiona Mackay. I'm the Service Manager for Inclusion and Additional Support with Education and Learning.
Excellent. Magda, do you want to say hello?
Hello, I'm Magda Pasternak. I'm a Democratic Support Officer and clerk to the committee. Thank you.
And Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Stephen, a Quality Improvement Officer for Inclusion Services as part of Education and Learning.
Excellent. I think we've all introduced ourselves. Are there any declarations of interest from them? Nope, don't think so. Right, okay. Moving on to the minute. Are we happy with the minute from the last meeting? Yes. Okay, can we say that as read then? In terms of
There's a note on the chat from Councillor Freshwater's, he's having issues in joining.
All right, okay. Well, we'll note his absence. Actually, I guess we should also note that Councillor Robertson may turn up. Depends where he's got to on the golf course. We've had an apology from Neil Bingham, who is doing a cultural evening in Edinburgh. See, that's more attractive than the Kinross-shire Committee. Anyway, sorry, that's an aside. Okay, if we can take the minute as agreed. In terms of the outstanding business statement, there are 3 items on it. We've got the committee session, which is now complete. We have the invitation to the police, which we made tonight, and we've got Darryl here. And there is a meeting of the Transport Forum still to be arranged, which I haven't done yet, but I will be doing imminently. Are we all happy that the 2 items that have been completed can come off? Okay, without further ado, we'll move on to the police and safety update. Did you want to lead on this one, Lee?
Yeah, happy to introduce. Unfortunately, Sergeant McDermott was hoping to be here from the Road Safety Unit, but he gave his apologies earlier in the week due to an increase in collisions. It may be due to the good weather, I don't know. He's been asked to be on patrol this evening, so can't join us. But I had a little bit of context which might be helpful. Hopefully, I'll get this will be accurate enough. If not, Darryl can dig me in the ribs because he's sitting right beside me. But following the April committee session that you referred to, some of the members here expressed concerns that the council weren't getting a full picture of some of the road safety issues as a result of the police approach to attendance and reporting of collisions in Kinross-shire. So as a result of that, I contacted Police Scotland and the road safety team. And if I recall correctly, the main concern was that police would only attend and therefore only record RTCs that result in injury or, unfortunately, fatality. So these records are then passed to the council and form part of the evidence base that Darrell and his colleagues then use to determine priorities for investment in road safety. But this information doesn't include near misses or RTCs that don't result in injury. Then there's potentially some other relevant data that's being missed, and some locations of concern might not be given sufficient attention. So the purpose of this evening's discussion was to allow police officers who can't be here this evening to outline their current approach. They've agreed in principle to support some form of parallel reporting mechanism for RTCs and near misses that don't result in injury. And Darrell and Blair from the road safety team, they're here to outline how that information from the police is used, and if there were to be a parallel reporting procedure, what sort of information would be needed in order to be useful to the road safety team in terms of identifying priorities. Is that fair?
That's fair.
I think that's everything. Yes. Thank you. Over to.
Did you want to speak to that, or Harold, do you want to add to it at all?
Yeah, the road traffic collision reports that we receive from the police provide us with a lot of information, time of day, direction of flow, type of vehicle, position of the passenger or driver within the car. Yeah, all of that is extremely useful to us. And until 2013, we used to receive the damage only information. But when the regional police forces were combined into a single police force, that facility was no longer provided. So we only receive the information on injury reports. That means that all of those damage only incidents, we're not getting any information. Within the reporting mechanism that we have, so the assessment criteria that allows us to review and rank all of the requested road safety projects, within that there is a facility for us to count or to give a score to damage only incidents. But we're actually relying on members of the public or elected members to provide us with that. And while that information is useful, it doesn't contain weather conditions, time of day, lighting conditions. So it is helpful, but there's a lot that we are missing. Unfortunately, that means that there are a lot of locations on the road network where there is, potential risk, or where we're seeing damage only incidents that we're not fully aware of, simply because we're not getting that information. I'm very encouraged to hear that the police are interested in some sort of reporting system that would give us more information, but we haven't received any detail from them as to what that would consist of, or how they would do that. It is a problem that is encountered by all local authorities, all roads authorities right across the country. It's not just peculiar to this area. None of the councils receive damage only data. So I mean, while we would welcome some local initiative, it would be great to see if this could be done at a national level as well.
Russia likes to be first.
Well, if we're able to lead this as a trial, that would be great, because then you'll be at the forefront of it. But it would demonstrate the value of that information, and it would allow us to direct the budget in a more appropriate manner.
Okay.
That you would ensure that you were delivering projects that address problem on the road network, whereas at the moment there are clearly gaps in our level of knowledge.
I think one of the gaps is probably the Moorcross Junction. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, certainly that's probably one of the highest risks, and there certainly have been numerous accidents there in the past few months. There's certainly several per month. Basically, the M90 is joined by the B996, and then it joins the A91, and then it comes the A91 stroke B9. It's a really complicated junction, and it's very high speed. I've also noticed since I got a new car that my car recognises speed limits, and within a distance of about 100 yards, it goes from 60 to 70 back to 40 and then up to 60 again. And my car, unless I'm under control and controlling it, it'll be very naughty. And that's me knowing the road. Somebody coming off that road as a tourist could be getting into all sorts of trouble. So I think that needs to be looked at as well. But it's just far too fast. Several lanes merging together. We've seen caravans overturned. There's regularly cars in the field opposite the B996 where you come down the hill. The signposts have never been replaced. The signage since accidents several months ago. So I think that has to be a high priority. I don't think we need to wait for reports from the police saying there are incidents here. We've certainly got one resident in the village who was severely injured on that junction, albeit it was 2017. But he was a consultant orthopaedic surgeon who was subsequently unable to work and unable to drive. So he certainly was severely injured at that junction. But when he got off a bus, a car mounted the pavement and took him out. So I think that there needs to be a fairly rapid look at that junction.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one example. I mean, yeah, well, I thought you might come into this point. Go on then.
So the 977, there was a really nasty accident at the new traffic lights in Drum over the weekend. The road was closed, the police were there. We also at the CC meeting, then we had reports from residents that the way that the traffic lights are turning off and on, and I don't know why they're doing that, and residents are all grateful for that. But if you're coming out from Drum and you're on a cycle, the traffic light doesn't see you. So the traffic lights never turn green if you're on a cycle. So they have to go over when it's red, or just, you know, that's one thing. It doesn't see a horse either, and there are stables down there. I think we've reported that in a couple of times. But that junction, and we've also had reports now of the light changes very, very quickly. And so HGVs are going through reds. They can't stop in time, you know, because A, they're not going at 40 when they should be, and B, they hit the red light. And so villagers are very concerned. The same, we've had an accident as well that was further down on the 977 at Blaringon. That was about 6 months ago. That resulted in a casualty, but that was 2024. So it doesn't appear because it goes to 2021, 2022, I think you did your analysis.
We have data up to 20.
So the Blaringon is the same thing. Same thing. People are racing to get through the lights because they're racing to keep up with the car in front, because if they know that there's a gap and they see that the car in front and they're on green, they know they won't turn to red, so they put their foot down, it turns to red and they're going through. You know, that is, so we had asked for some road lines to be put down, you know, in those two positions, say once since they've been up and running, these traffic lights, what's actually happening, what is the speed that's going through there? Because say those two accidents already, and obviously my colleagues' favourite ones, the 91, there is an accident there, racing again. They were coming up through the 30, overtook a bin lorry, thought they would get through and didn't, two SUVs head on. So again,
when was that?
That was probably about 4 months ago.
Because there was the one on the 977 just outside, well, in Crooked Avenue, beside the B9097 junction. You probably haven't had a report, but
yeah,
they wiped out a whole series of planters and there was damage done to vehicles. It's that sort of thing, I think, that we're talking about trapping. I mean, I'm not suggesting that we push it down now.
But it's just that this seems to be, we see it as villagers, and as you rightly say, you know, villager will go on the Facebook, you know, go on the Facebook, roads closed, traffic, you know, watch out. But, you know, I don't sit and record then as a CC, right? It's sunny, it's dry, and all the things that are of value to you for the road safety. But it's the things that every month comes to the CC meeting, there's always an accident somewhere in the Fossway. So Carnbo is a particular race run first thing in the morning, kids going to school, you know, and I think we've now resolved safely a space where the school bus can pull in.
Okay. I think the point though is that there seems to be an appetite that we should do something like this. I'm sure that police can give us examples. There's probably Kinross as well. Northern thought be the same. We know Northern thought we've had vehicles running into buildings at high speed. So I mean, basically the point is though, is there an appetite for community councils to start logging this information and sending it out to their communities and getting someone to collate it?
We've discussed it as our RCC. They are prepared to do it. They just want to know it's going to be used. You know, that they're going to be able to reflect and see that it's making a difference. I can be honest, absolutely honest with you. We've got some residents who are thinking of purchasing their own strip lines so that we can give you data of exactly what because we have been asking for a couple of years for that to be done now, to see exactly what's going on, because we believe that there is a huge number of heavy goods vehicles that are getting heavier and bigger that are racing through our villages on the 977 and the 91. They just ignore the speed limits. And like you say, as you go out of Blarington, you come into Blarington, you hit 30, you go beyond the lights, there's a little bit more PKC, Authority Road, that's 60. Up quarter of a mile down the road, it hits 40 because you're into Clacks. And then that misses a bit and it goes to 60 again. And then you get to Forest Mill and it's 40. They don't bother. They just race till they get to the lights. They ignore it. So to me, it's actually going along these roads and saying, what's the rationale? Because like you saying, they just ignore them all if it's going to 30, 40s. Yeah, anything from 60, they might drop when they get to 30 because a lot of our places have got traffic lights. But 60, 40, then back up to 60, they don't bother.
We certainly run along all of that route with the community bus, and we are held up quite often with minor accidents. And we are aware of the HGVs on that road, and it's perilous stopping some of the places to let people off.
And that's
it's a disaster waiting to happen.
It is, we really appreciate that, because we didn't have the bus and we're really, really grateful for it. But I'm more worried about the fact that, minibus your size picks up the primary school kid who is standing on the corner. There is, Blarington, it's an absolute nightmare, for them to get on the bus there, and parents are worried.
Yeah, but I don't want to get into the specifics, but as I say, I think every community council could go, and I'm sure that Frank could tell us about vehicles that have gone into fields and all sorts of things. I think we know that there seems to be an appetite. So is that a decision of this committee that we should follow that up with the road safety team and the police to see what information they want us to collect? Because I don't, as you said, Darryl, I don't think there's any point just saying there's an accident at the end of my street this week. It needs to be more detailed so you can actually understand what's happened. So if we can get something like a form or a spreadsheet type thing, that the sort of information you want.
We could, because we could use this, something similar to what the police use, the recording system. It's like a tick box exercise. Was it during daylight? Was it during darkness? Is it street lit or not street lit? Yeah, that would be good. I think if there is support from the committee to take that back to the police to be able to demonstrate that there's community concern, and as you say, there's no reason why it can't be trialled here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just to pick up on a few things, if I may, convener, the A9, so Mulcars Junction, yes, we are aware of that, but largely because our roads maintenance officer had raised the issue with us. We've sent photographs of it. We have someone looking at that. When you're coming on the B road, both B roads towards it, there's a proliferation of signs. There's a lot of information there. And some of the signs are obscuring others. So I think, trying to make the junction more prominent, putting in a map sign or something, we can try and improve driver awareness on the approach. The issue of the speed on the A road is a big problem. And both of you sort of commented on this. I mean, a lot of it is down to driver behaviour and a deliberate decision by the driver to drive at that speed. But if we can give the driver better information about the potential hazards ahead, hopefully that would influence their driving behaviour at some locations. The A977, the traffic surveys, we have a whole batch of traffic surveys either ordered or planned on our A-class road network, and that includes the A977. And what we're doing on the likes of a road like that, every time the speed limit changes, we're putting in a traffic counter. So on the 60 section, on the 40, on the 30, and it's really to see what the levels of compliance are within the reduced speed limits. The A91, and well, we hadn't included the A91, but we can do so. That's not a problem. But again, you were saying that the collision there was someone speeding to try and overtake. Again, it wasn't necessarily the fault of the road, but in all of those issues, whether it is excessive speeding or antisocial driving behaviour, those are all matters for the police. As a local authority, we can put in lower speed limits, but it's up to the police to enforce them. And the comment about the lorries driving at 60, I mean, the maximum permitted speed limit for those vehicles is 40, but the traffic survey data will clearly show that compliance is poor. The A977 is a difficult route in that it is from our perspective, it is a high standard A-class road. The road width, the alignment, the visibility is reasonably good, certainly much better when you compare it to the rest of our rural road network. And we do expect it to carry a high volume of traffic, but the A977 carries a higher than the national average for HGV traffic. But again, that information, when we send you the traffic survey data, we'll be able to show you where we get those figures from. So yeah, there are issues, and if you are able to let us know, and even if it's only just to say there's been another car through the hedge, that's great. If you can give us more than that, then that'd be even better, but we can certainly look out that and come up with some sort of form, an electronic form that we can issue to people.
The sooner the better, because I think I get the feeling there's quite an appetite for that.
Yeah, if there's a template available, I'm quite happy to take to the police.
Well, we're actually looking to almost to copy the template that the police use.
Yes.
And that would be good, because at least that would provide consistency in reporting. The information that we get from the local community would match what we receive from Police Scotland.
My understanding of the process, and it's unfortunate police aren't here, is that if there is an incident, even if it is damage only, I think I'm right in saying that those involved are obliged to let the police know that there has been an incident, although the police will not attend.
No,
they're not obliged to let them know.
If anyone is injured or if there is damage to third-party property,
right,
they have to report it.
Right. Okay.
If it is damage only, non-injury, it's up to the drivers and the road users involved to decide.
Okay.
And quite often they will maybe just only exchange information. But what we find with being a rural authority, we have an issue that a lot of the road traffic collisions are actually single vehicles.
Yeah.
It's not a head-on collision, it's somebody losing control, going too fast into a bend. There's nobody to report it to. And if the vehicle is still roadworthy, the driver goes off and we're left with a hole in the hedge.
So if we can get people to log that, then
yes,
at least know that you know they're coming down the hill from straight into the field, but which happens every year.
But that's good. I mean, and and if that was reported, we're seeing that it's happening regularly, and it's always in the same direction, and it's always is it a car, is it a lorry? Just the more information. But yes, it's usually the hole in the hedge. We're driving past thinking, oh, somebody's gone off the road, and straight away you're thinking, why? What were the background circumstances? So we'll draft. Blair will draft. We'll look at that template for the reporting system.
If you could, and get it out to us, then we'll circulate to the community councils, and
we'll
start publicising.
And once we get the traffic survey data, we'll share that with the community councils as well.
Yeah.
Okay, Richard, do you want to say something?
Just Nicola brought up the traffic lights at Drum with the cyclist going through. Any thoughts or comments on that? Is that a quick fix or what?
Yeah, I mean, we can adjust the timings. We can adjust the length of time for the lights to change whenever they're triggered by the infrared sensor or the loops in the road. We can adjust the time that the red light is on or the green light is on for. The issue with the cyclists.
Yeah, it's it should detect cyclists, but I need to speak to a traffic signal expert just to make sure, and you can have a look at it. I'm not sure about the one on the horses though, because I think it detects movement and like metal and things like that, so it should pick it up. But I can certainly pass it on to Michael and UTC, and they can take a look at that.
That'd be great, because because when I heard about it, I was also particularly worried that obviously I think I was worried that more of the kids were cycling to school, and I'm thinking, oh my god, are they then?
Yeah.
I had comments about you've got the school lane lights, and then you've got the ones just around the corner. They're not synchronized, and I've had a few people say to me that's a real problem, because it's really got around the thought, and it's red, and
the school, it's kind of standalone pop and crossing, and I think they should be linked, but I just need to catch Michael on that.
Well, that's good for us to know that, because at least we can now go check, and we can get someone to look at that.
Did you purposely change the blaring on ones for a couple of weeks?
Purposely? Oh, I believe
they were. I think they may have been carrying out a test on the default to red, or it might have just been reverted to a different program because of a fault. I know they carried out a test on the default to red to assess like red light running.
Yes.
So that might have been it, or it might have just defaulted.
Yeah, because I wondered if that, because I use that red all the time, and I thought it wasn't. It doesn't change. It was holding me at red rather than changing to green.
Yeah.
So I thought, and I wondered if it was as a consequence of the accident where I think somebody was seriously injured.
Okay.
Couldn't swear by that.
Yeah.
And if there's any data from that, then that would.
Yeah, we have. I think there is a report. It may not be on the Blue and Gone one. I think it was on the Hutchison Drive in Scone, and they did a test. As you'd expect, the amount of red light running increased when you default the lights to red.
Yeah.
If it's on green for the main drag, that reduces. and there was a couple of other things. I can't remember what happened to vehicle speeds off the top of my head, but there's a brief report which we could share with you.
But obviously with the 977, it's looking like loads of areas about the traffic calming. So what is the best way of setting it? So we have people asking us, and we say,
I think
I'm sure there's evidence there somewhere.
Yeah, there's arguments for both. You know, if you default to the red, there's potentially better impact on speed because you're slowing people down. Then you might see an increase in kind of rear shunt and red light and kind of collision. So it's kind of weighing up, you know, which one.
But if the bearing gone was that, it might have been because the traffic lights were out for a while and suddenly they were set up.
Potentially, it could be, yeah.
If there was a purpose for it,
Yeah.
that would be great to see the data.
Yeah. Okay, I think if we can move on, conscious of the time, people sitting. So thank you for that. So if you can come back to us with the format you'd like it.
Yeah.
We'll just, I'm going to distribute it to the various community councils, and I'm sure they'll be discussing it in their meetings. But we need to liaise with the police to sort of,
Yes.
we can actually coordinate it. Are you going to do that, or will you do that?
Well, we'll probably take the lead on that because we're in regular contact.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I'll see
we take work away from you.
No, it's all quite fun. Another folder in there somewhere.
I was going to move on to the, we put out the RS project report from February. And I just wondered if anyone had any questions or comments on that they wanted to ask.
That big spreadsheet.
That was the big, those, the various pages.
42 pages.
Yeah, that was the majority of the report. So you've got the priority projects. I think there's a couple missing off there. So I think, did we not mention Springfield Road as a priority?
Yeah, that was Kinross-shire Committee Council and numerous other people you've mentioned.
Yeah, that one's
the corner, the difficult, the challenging one.
The whole spreadsheet is being reviewed. We're looking at the most current data, trying to recalibrate it to use the data up to the end of the calendar year 2024. We're also looking at reviewing the assessment because at the moment, the original assessment criteria just looked at the technical use of the road, and then it was amended. And the original report's 2019. In 2023, we amended the report to include the consultation of the elected members ward by ward to identify community priorities. And now we've been asked to look at it again. Do we still include that, or do we go back to the technical report? One of the problems we've had is that over the last 12, 18 to 18 months, there's been a large focus on delivering the 20 mile per hour national strategy, which is right from the Scottish Government. The advantage of that is all wards will get a benefit of that. But the cross-tie link road and the mitigation measures that were put in the villages that were affected by the new road opening and increased traffic, that had all to be put in place before the new bridge opened. That's been done, which is now starting to release some staff time for us to get back and look at other projects. But also the pavement parking bill that came in took up a lot of staff time. Now that some of those projects have either been completed or in place and are now being monitored, we're hoping that that will allow us to get back in and to look at the list, which is why we are reviewing and recalibrating the list. So the likes of Springfield Road, I'll take a note of that. We did discuss it, and that needs to be then brought forward as one of the community priorities.
I think the other one, there's Kinross Primary School. I think one of them's in, so that's the bit on the station roads a priority, but the actual drop-off zone inside the school is also should also be one of those priorities, which it was before, I think.
Yeah, you mean in relation to the yellow lines?
But they wanted cross-hatching across the.
Yeah, so the school keep, they were discussing this earlier because we knew we were coming here tonight. The school keep clear markings, so the zigzag markings for Station Road, the traffic regulation order is in place for that, so we can get those markings put in as quickly as we can. The yellow lines, double yellow lines, and the yellow box markings within the school grounds, not on the public road, but still under the responsibility of Perth and Kinross Council. We're now started work on the traffic regulation order for that.
Okay, has that been passed by the Community Council, the Kinross Community Council?
No, I don't know
what
it has.
To them? They've got a meeting next week.
Yes.
So the drawings are available. We're still preparing the draft regulation.
Yeah, that's just if we can
and then
pass it by
that kind of.
So that's fine. So because I know that we had discussed it with the ward councillors and with the head teacher, but yeah, that's fine. We can pass it on to Kinross Community Council as well. Ideally, we'd send the one lining squad out to do both, and it might mean that the markings at the school might be in place before the TRO is processed, but it is in the process of being made. So we'll try and get that all progressed.
The other one I had was Stirling Road, and I think the South Streets and the
Yes.
but Stirling Road should also be.
Yes, they will be done this year because the money was put into a revenue budget, which we haven't spent. And that might affect the delivery of projects in the capital budget, but yes, we have given a commitment to the installation of a new puffin crossing on Stirling Road for Milford Primary School and upgrading of the existing zebra crossing on Station Road to a puffin crossing.
Okay, I'm focusing on these because these are safer routes to school for kids.
Yeah.
Because you've had the Persimmon estate built here and you've got 2 new estates in Milner Thornton. There's Kinross Primary School's now got 488 pupils on the school roll. I think that's right, Fiona. And there's 42 reserved places, so it's the biggest single primary school in Perth and Kinross. And because you've got all these kids, new kids, and they're crossing Springfield Road, they're crossing, it's a problem that we need to address and get sorted. So that's why I'm just mentioning those. I mean, I know each of you have got your own priorities, but we can come to those another time. Have you got any other questions or comments?
I haven't seen it. Is there anything about the park and ride?
Well, that's part of the 20 mile an hour zone.
I mean, bike stories.
Things like safe crossing, because there are now 10 buses an hour at least in both directions. So it's getting to be quite busy and it's quite challenging crossing the road. I've just went round to the park and ride, and it really is difficult getting across the junction, walking along Station Road, getting over to Sainsbury's and round that corner. And it is a case of people driving far too fast. There's no road, there's no safety bits in the middle of the road that you can get to. You just have to run.
It's 3 lanes, isn't it? It's 3 lanes, but I think it's getting it. Can I stress that this new bike bus thing that great idea, but how does that affect, or how is that affecting finance and stuff?
What I suggested is invite Kirsty to your community council. She'll be delighted to come and talk to you about it. And,
I would like to,
I think it's challenge. I think there's no question it's challenging. I think that the Milner Thornton one, I think, had 26 last Friday, and every week it's growing. And some of the people on their way to work are a wee bit impatient.
Yes,
I'm not quite. And I believe that the South Street, the feedback I got is when you're coming around the corner to South Street, that's the bit where I think it's most challenging with the kids, and there's a wee bit of nervousness. There's lots of helpers out helping, but it's still not brilliant. But I don't know what you can, an old town centre is difficult to get set aside, pavements for the kids or anything like that, but it's still something you want to encourage. But I thought I'd just let it bed down and then maybe have a chat with you if there is anything within that needs to be looked at from a safety perspective. I think the perfect crossing on South Street should hopefully help a bit, but because they don't cross, so when they're cycling down, they don't try and cross the road to get into the park. They come off the road, they come off their bikes and they walk across the zebra crossing. I think having crossing certainly help at that bit.
Okay, did that answer your question?
Right. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. See what people thought, really.
It's a local initiative to get kids to school on bikes.
They're just along the road and they get shepherded by adults on the outside. It just takes like 2 lines of bikes though, and it's a bit of I can see it being a bit of a problem.
And the police are going to, I think, on this Friday the 23rd this month. Is that a Friday?
Yeah.
I think the police are going to join the kids and actually on bikes as well, and actually cycle along as well, which I thought was a nice touch for the police perspective. So
just shut the impatient drivers up.
Do you have any more questions or comments about?
We submitted after our CC meeting in August 2024, we submitted comments in around the 20 mile an hour. Some of them weren't reflected on the spreadsheet that we saw. Don't know why. And then we also in April submitted you an Excel spreadsheet of our priorities. We can send them to you again. Yeah. But again, they weren't reflected in the spreadsheet. I don't know whether you hadn't updated it. You said you were doing it again.
Because the priorities are agreed by the ward councillors.
Fine, we just wanted to, we have to go back to obviously to our residents to say why, like Carnbo was number 432, which was our priority 1.
Well, the ranking is based on the technical assessment. So in on the large, on our screen, the second tab is the active list, if you like. Yeah. So that's like 700 projects, which far exceeds what we can deliver. But we meet with the ward councillors to pick from that list the priorities ward by ward. At the moment, most of the priorities are the 20 mile per hour, some of the puffin crossings, the yellow lines that we have discussed. But if there are community priorities identified by the community council, that needs to be agreed.
Because we've also put this on local place plan, which obviously is hopefully going to be registered. So, I mean, I think because we've just, before we came to the meeting, received 3 maps from Blair.
Yep.
So, but they didn't, there were some things in there about where the stops and starts were, like they were the wrong side of the crossing for core paths and things. So do we send you comments back or?
Yes, because we can adjust the proposal.
Some of them might not, you know, we might disagree with them and say, no, we don't think that's a good idea. But yeah, just feed your comments back and we can take that, discuss with elected members, discuss with the community council, and we can come over a final plan.
Brilliant, because, and are those ones being taken into consideration with the bigger picture as an enabler to, because they were just very specific. So when we look at the whole of the village of Blair and Gone, for example, then we know that there is a quest for footpaths because there's 124 lodges being built half a mile down the road, and there's going to be a right-hand turning there. So have you taken all of that information into consideration when you've proposed the start and the stopping of moving from 40 to 30s? Look at the whole village, because obviously we do, there's some footpaths going in here. So I'd have to cross that road, and then why isn't the 30 gone to the end of the footpath?
Most of the decisions will be based on the existing road network as it is at the moment. The traffic regulation order can be changed if there was future development, or we could get some of those amendments or proposed changes included as part of the planning application. The difficulty with linking it to planning is if it's private development, we have no idea what the timescale is going to be.
But we do know that. And obviously the path work.
You don't necessarily.
Well, we talked to the developers and they're doing, you know, but the path that is being proposed is actually on your spreadsheet. It's not on the developer's spreadsheet, it's on yours.
And where is this particular?
The path is, I can tell you the number on your line. But it's on the.
I'll not remember all 700 of them.
Wearing Gone.
Right.
So, and that's the path that is a shared use path.
That's along the edge of the A977 and the existing.
Correct. Yeah. And to extend it out. Yeah. And so obviously we want to ensure that if you're changing, you go through the whole TRO process, that the 20 extends into that phase, because that's where people are going to be crossing the road.
I think it's a chicken and egg. I think basically you have to get the thing built, if you like, first, and then you look at the PROs, because you can't guarantee the builder's going to do it.
No, but ideally you would be looking
it's not the builder, it's them. It's PKC have said they're going to put the path in.
But I think it's aspirational at this stage.
Well, who in PKC has said?
Well, it's on your spreadsheet.
Yeah, but there's no guarantee we'll deliver any or all of those projects. They're all subject to budget, all subject to agreement.
So
we have no idea what the time scale.
Okay, so when it says green on there, what does green mean?
Green means that it's explained in the report that the green is that the land is available and the project could be built. Amber refers to sites where there may be difficulty with drainage or utilities. There's a fibre optic cable in there.
It's
feasible, yes. And red is land would be required, but we couldn't physically build it at the moment. So they're aspirational.
I must admit.
I'm going to make this the last question. So
very quick one. I go back to when you talked about Kinross Primary School before. Do you have any plans for further up Station Road opposite the church? There's I live on Loma Mews, it's right opposite the church. If you come out Loma Mews, the road bends back to your left. And if anything's happening at the church, people just park right up to the junction. And it's very difficult to see.
Yes.
And it can be actually quite dangerous.
Yeah.
I've made inquiries before and was kind of, once I was brushed off, but it's like no one's really interested. Anything be done about this?
Yes. The last time it was raised with us, the proposal was to extend the yellow lines to remove the on-street parking so that we maximise the visibility. It didn't get community support. So we didn't progress it. But when we can get it back onto the list, we're happy to review it again.
That'd be good.
You could look at something like, depending on when it was, you could put a single yellow line for a daytime restriction, but if it's linked to activity at the church.
It is, that's what I mean. It's difficult to say.
Yeah.
It happens all the time, but it doesn't. Anything busy at the church, people just park there and they go right up to, they're not supposed to park within 15 feet of the junction.
The highway code advises drivers not to park within 10 metres or opposite a junction. It doesn't say you must not. However, you'd have to question why people would choose to go against the advice in the highway code.
Can I just quickly ask, with this, these spreadsheets that have been sent to you in Pilma?
They've been sent to the secretary, right? Yeah. But we can provide them if you want. I can.
The spreadsheets are fluid because as projects are completed, they come off it. As new requests go on, for example, this one is Station Road, if that goes on, so projects will move up and down. But it is a useful guide.
And the maps that you were talking about, that's in there as well, different maps.
No, the maps that were issued today were for.
With the big consultation on speed limits within the Fossabee.
So it's nothing to do with Glen Park.
No, no.
You need an email from me to request that, or do you?
No, I'll take note of that. Barry.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, can we move on? Yeah, okay. Thank you, guys. You're welcome to stay, but I suspect you'll probably want to go and enjoy the sun. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Richard's going to introduce the next topic. So.
Okay, the next topic is Kinross Streetlight campaign, and Emily Queen, is that? The City and Rural Town Centre Management Officer is going to give a verbal update.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here this evening. I think Martha's got some slides, but I'm not sure. That right?
I think it's Audrey will hopefully load them up for us.
Yes, just give us a second. We'll put it on the screen.
That's fine. I'll just start talking and we'll move to slide 2 whenever you're ready. That's absolutely fine. So thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to start by talking about the Perth City and Towns channels that we have up here. Just the next slide, Magda, would be brilliant. Thank you. They are business to consumer platforms which allow us to offer promotional opportunities for businesses and visitor attractions via a multi-platform marketing strategy and vibrant varied programme of campaigns and events. So aim to showcase the region, our nature, attractions, activities, culture, food and history, which obviously make the area a popular destination for both day visitors and tourists seeking to explore the region. We plan and deliver the content creation and promotion of upcoming events and campaigns, including the Kinross Street Life campaign, which I'm here to talk about today. So we've got the Perth City and Towns website there, which is Perth and Kinross Council owned. All these platforms are. We've got the Facebook page with 35,000 followers, the other social pages, X, Insta and YouTube. And we also have our MailChimp platform, and I'll come on to talk about MailChimp in a wee while. If we can nip to the next slide when you're ready, Magda. Thank you. So in 2023, the website went under a rebrand and a refresh. The long-standing Perth City Centre brand was updated to reflect the wider area, and all channels now run under the Perth City and Towns for a more prominent focus in the towns, with a dedicated page for each, featuring things to do and businesses to visit, etc. The 6 key towns being Pitlochry, Aberfeldy, Radder, Blair, Gowrie, Crieff and of course Kinross, and these are categorised as follows under there. Down the side there's just some screen grabs from the home page of the website. We are going to further improve the website to improve the customer's experience with improved navigation and overall look and feel of the website, because that is long overdue, and we'll look to have that completed by September 2025. So if we can move on to the next slide, Magda, when you're ready. So the Kinross Street Life campaign, then these pages went live yesterday, so promotion of the campaign will begin tomorrow. This is following the success of the Street Life campaign in Perth City Centre that we did over Christmas, and our aim was to replicate this in the towns, and Kidvina, we've picked Kinross as the pilot. So there we go. So the pages, as I say, went live yesterday. This is the landing page here. We've tried to incorporate the Love Local messaging, which is people really looking to support local business, and that's strong across the country. So we're looking to capitalise on that. Our strength being our independent businesses. So where possible, we've had a photograph of the business with their owner and a member of the staff. We had a photographer that came to Kinross to capture these photos. So this is a screenshot of the landing page that you'll see. So there's 3 categories there. You've got independent shops, cafes and restaurants, and then attractions. And there's a link there above. If we could go to the next slide, Magda, when you've got a second, thank you. So that just shows you that it's just a small screen grab. There is a lot more listings underneath there, but just shows you that we've got an image of the business, some blurb and exciting copy in there about the business, and then a direct link to the business website. And that's replicated in all 3 of the articles from the shops, cafes and restaurants, and the attractions as well. If we can nip to the next slide, Magda. Thank you very much. So the campaign details then, as I say, the campaign starts tomorrow. We've got digital campaign via our social media channels. We paid promotional and paid adverts on socials. We've got video content from travel blogger Kay, the Chaotic Scot. Kay did some really good videography and blogs for us over Christmas. In Perth, and also some itineraries across the region. She was delighted to come to Kinross and had a great experience in Kinross. So these videos, we've got the content to promote on our channels, and we'll do that, but she will also post on her social channels. Being an influencer reaches the thousands, so it's great to have Kay involved again. She's very well known in the tourist industry and across Scotland with various bits that she does, so if you don't know her, just check it out. It's very good. We've got a Courier full page editorial piece, as well as an advertorial piece. And then we've got the MailChimp newsletter, as I said, that goes out on that platform. That's over 21,000 subscribers we have on that, and that will be issued tomorrow. If we could go to the next slide. So other ways that we can support the area and promote Kinross is by listing your event on Perth City and Towns. So this is maybe a really good one for the community councils to pass this on, and please feel free to share any of these slides and my contact information. But it's a really quick and easy way to do it by listing as a co-host on our Facebook. It automatically appears on the website events feed. And then we populate the events and festivals blog. So just to give you a wee bit of context, we get about 23,000 page views a month on the site, and we can promote all these events through our MailChimp newsletters as well. As well as listing the event, we also have a directory, and we've got a directory for Kinross-shire. This is completely free for businesses to join, and they can create their own log-on and amend their listing anytime they wish. All those that were involved in the Street Life campaign have made a directory listing. If we can go to the next slide, Magda, minute, thanks. We have monthly marketing, so as I said, this subscribers is 21,000, and we send a newsletter every month with extras at peak time. Our editorial style boasts a 40% open rate, and this is used for events, attractions, and like the Street Life campaign. It's a screenshot there of last month's. This is the link to join the newsletter if you haven't already done one. If we can skip to the next slide, Magda, thank you. So this is the newsletter that will go out tomorrow, a dedicated newsletter all about Kinross, promoting all of the campaign content. I should say that the 21,000 subscribers that we've got is largely due to the competition functionality on the website. We introduced that in 2022, and having that short break competitions throughout the year help us to get that data and ensure that we're speaking to a wider audience. And to put that into context, in 2020 we had 8,000 subscribers, so it really has peaked. So it's a great use, a great tool that we have for speaking to the community and promoting anything in any area across the region. So this newsletter will go out tomorrow. There's some really good imagery of Kinross in there. the content, case video blogs will go in there as well. I should have showed them tonight, but they're not. I had a technical issue and they're not quite ready, but they'll be ready for tomorrow. So we can use all that content, and that will go out, as I say, to the subscribers on there. This is the next slide whenever you're ready, Magda. Thank you. So ongoing business opportunities, as well as the community newsletter. I send out a monthly business newsletter with ongoing new opportunities to support businesses. Currently the newsletter goes out to 632 businesses, and their open rate has never dropped before, below 64%, but we're really trying to encourage every business across the region to sign up, because it's a great way just to promote everything that's going on and support ongoing opportunities that we have. Obviously, what's very important is signposting to partners and local groups. So on the Kinross Street Life campaign pages, we've got links to Kinross-shire Partnership and the Visit Loch Leven Facebook page. We can add any more in there. Obviously, we want to support local community groups and business associations. I work with Kinross Partnership, and we'll be giving a presentation at their AGM in June. We want to continue to build on the brand and the ethos of the Street Life campaign in Kinross, working more with businesses and the Kinross-shire Partnership. It's important for me to note that the Street Life campaign was aimed at the town centre and supporting our high street, but we do have a variety of articles and blogs and content on Perth City and Towns which feature Kinross-shire businesses and attractions across the region, including regular events, in addition to the Street Life pages. So we've got everything from campsites to castles. We've got Loch Leven Fisheries, Loch Leven Heritage Trail, RSPB, businesses in Milnathorpe, Balgeddy Toll and Scotland Well, and our golf courses. And we're always looking at ways we can support the full region. So, you know, Glenfargs, Crooked Evans, all these other places. So the Street Life campaign, as I say, was designed to promote high streets and increase that journey and dwell time and promote the full area. So as I say, everything goes live tomorrow. If you could sign up, then you will receive the newsletter, but I'm more than happy to circulate that, Lee, if that's any use, Rena, and I'm happy to take any questions. And
Have a couple.
Okay.
Kinross newsletter.
Kinross newsletter.
Do you know the Kinross newsletter?
Yeah.
The magazine?
Yeah.
And do you not think advertising then?
Yeah, we have them various pieces in there before, and we did obviously quite a nice collaboration piece for the V80 VED80 celebrations. Hannah was there and took wee bits, so that was great. So yeah, no, we have used the newsletter. We could take note and do more to promote on that, because it'd be nice to do that with the campaign.
And if you're going to be spending money with the courier, you'd actually, maybe have to spend it locally as opposed to more locally.
Yeah. Julie.
And also the name. I mean, there's a big confusion over the name, isn't there, between the two?
Confusion over what name? Sorry.
Kinross newsletter.
Oh, I know. Sorry, I'm calling this the Kinross-shire newsletter because but it's a Perth City and Towns newsletter titled Kinross-shire. So sorry, this is a Kinross-shire edition of that newsletter. Sorry, that's maybe me not explaining it properly. It's not going to be a regular newsletter that goes out. It's just an extension of sort of a media outlet, a promotion for the full campaign.
What can you do to put this out then? Why is it not a regular thing then? You don't want to.
But we do regular monthly newsletters through MailChimp and under the banner of Perth City and Towns. But this is the first one we've done that's totally dedicated to Kinross. It's a day in Kinross, and it's really showcasing and celebrating everything that we have in Kinross. And as I say, we did something very similar over Christmas that was very city centre focused in Perth. So our idea is to replicate that in the towns. And it's been really well received by the businesses themselves, even having the photographer come out and do that. It was a pleasure to work on the campaign. It really was. But likewise with what we've done in Perth, it really is a starting point, and we want to continue to build on that and build it into itineraries across the region. We just need, businesses to be involved and want to work with us going
I think
forward.
Dave wants to come in with a question and then Drew.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, do you do events as well? Because, for example, there's a big market coming up on the 24th of May. Is a
Yeah, Cleo.
area in town?
Yeah, Cleo use us regularly for listing the event because it's very easy to do. But Boeam is in contact, and we do quite obviously with the Kinross markets are a regular one that constantly come up, and we've had them scheduled anyway. We do a lot on socials to promote. But yeah, if there's any sort of ad hoc or more gala type events or any of these things, we really encourage the communities, because the onus is on any event organiser to kind of list that event. But we can then, once that's populated, include it in newsletters and events and festivals page. I should say that the refresh and what we're looking to make the website even more user friendly is to make sure we've got some sort of widget or way for event organisers and community groups to actually upload that directly on the website. We think that would be a really easy way for those that don't have a Facebook page or don't use Facebook. Right now, that's the quickest way to do it, but it is managed by our comms team, and they would take anything and put it up at your request, especially for the kind of community or PKC groups.
Brilliant, because all of our village halls run events, and if they post it, they just normally put something in, like a little script. But if they actually go onto Facebook and actually just create it as an event, then it can be linked through.
Yes, just list us as a co-host. That's all they need to do.
I'll show them to do that.
Automatically. But I can send I can circulate to Lee how to do that. A user guide.
Really good. Because I can drop it all off at all of our village halls so that they can sit and do it.
That'd be brilliant.
All committees. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I'm happy to come to any community council meetings or anything like that if you think it would be a benefit, to the residents or the businesses involved. Steve's like, hold on.
To have it in the village halls, to how to do it, guide for the whole committees.
Like what's on and
exactly. But we do have a really strong following on there, so it is a great use of tool and a platform for communities.
I think Drew wants to come in.
It was just a quick question. I really like what you're doing and it looks good, but are there links to transport so people know how to get around all these wonderful looking places?
Yeah, do you know, we've just really started, a really good question, we've really started that, and for instance, our cocktail week that's happening, we've linked in with Stagecoach and things. I know, sorry. But yeah, no, it would be really, we have got travel links on there, but anything we can do to improve that, greener and using.
No, I did actually mean all transport. I'm not.
Yeah, but yes, no, we can do more.
Good to be there, I know. And how you do by bike and walking and stuff. Like that.
There's a lot on cycling. I've given you a snapshot of the street life, but there is so many articles that we have on there, from quirky accommodation, you name it, cycling, that really is. And it's not just us thinking of these things. It really is driven by the Google Analytics and what people are Googling when they've come into Perth and Kinross.
You promote the free bus Saturday stuff as well.
Yes,
that's a good
we do. First Saturday of the month, which obviously coincides with Perth Farmers Market and things as well. So that's great. But yeah, we do that. Yeah, a lot of promotion on the first Saturday of the month, free bus travel.
Any further?
Maybe just come in a couple of the points that have been raised. So I think noted in the Kinross newsletter, we can absolutely do that. I suppose with these things, we have to get our kind of mix of marketing right as well. So the reason I'm courier and out with is because we want to attract people from out with the area. The content is great, and Emily talked about the Perth City Centre stuff that was done over Christmas, which is brilliant. We have been kind of mindful as well, where possible, not to make that time sensitive, so that can be reused, so not sticking dates and stuff on things. So businesses have got really good high quality content, whether that be blogs, video, images, that they can use that over and over again. So we've been kind of mindful of that, and just on, because Emily's going to be very busy over the next while, doing lots of stuff for Kinross-shire, which is brilliant. But what we intend to do is kind of work with you to build capacity in each of these areas. So we talked about refreshing and the website and things, and we want to build something that we can build that capacity and folks can do stuff themselves, because it's not possible for us to do everything. So we want to work with local areas and make that possible, so you can upload events and things like that. But we will absolutely help with that, but mindful of resource and time as always as well. So we'll again getting that balance right.
I think my only other concern is one that nobody I'm sure would agree with, but it seems to me that each of the passes that Kinross becomes one of a number of county towns, whereas really its historical significance is a lot greater than the other ones you've got there. And I do think we should make more of it.
People.
I agree. Kinross militia would be out at it. I think we should make more of it. And there's
I totally. We've had some really exciting historical itineraries, culture itineraries. We have loads, and there's been Kinross has featured, all over. So there is a lot of references. When I pulled it all down, I've got a spreadsheet of everything that has a Kinross-shire business or attraction or something involved, and there's a lot.
Emily lives in Monmouthorpe, so.
But I think Kinross is the only county town. I think Kinross is the only county town, isn't it, out of those? It's the county town of Kinross-shire. Out of those six.
I think helping with the events is going to be an enormous help to our community, because they were actually having to think about, do they have to raise some marketing money to get them higher up on the Facebook, but if we can just link, that just saves us having to go to fundraising, to be honest.
And it's a very popular page, the events feed, and there's an awful lot of horse cross and different events going on there. But it really is, and we have such a mix of people and traffic to the website. It's that 2-hour drive time, but there's an awful lot from the Edinburgh. There is a lot that travel as well, and we can capture that data from the competition function on the website as well, so we know what demographic are going on there. So
That's to Drew's point, the Edinburgh cluster having from I know in the castle we got a huge amount of people, day trippers from Edinburgh, constantly, and just encourage them to come by bus and
absolutely. People busway gathering that come up. It's like it was a lot more. We're seeing our numbers go up. It's just our village halls and their events. They struggle sometimes. They're running Cayley and something.
Emily gets that sent out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, so to final point on this, so I think it's a reason that we're definitely looking at the navigation, because there's a lot of stuff on there already, and and if we start to put more events stuff on, it can start to be very cluttered, and you lose impact because you're scrolling down and people don't do that. You've got a few seconds, so that's where we're working on the navigation, so we can do a bit more area based and whatever type of events and stuff as well. But that's a challenge for us.
But simple stuff like we got requests from people that were going to the Fossilway Gathering asking us, how do we get to this spot on the map, which was nowhere near the Fossilway Gathering. It was Fossilway, which was near Carnbow, and they wanted to know how to get there. Just having a simple thing on the website saying, this is how you actually get to the Fossilway Gathering by bus. You get the Enbib to the parking, right? You get the Glenfarne bus out and whatever.
And we'll take the fare.
That
was really good. Really look forward to getting that. The newsletter. It would be good if we could just get it passed around the group as well. I think that would.
I'm just going to circulate.
I just love all of it.
Yes, that's it. And all the links are live, so you can register, and it'll hit your inbox tomorrow. So.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for building this station.
I know.
Okay, thank you. You can go if you want.
Thank you.
It's up to you. You're welcome to stay and listen to see what Stephen's got to say. So we're now going on to the ISP provision, and hopefully they haven't fallen asleep. We've got 3 people, I think, from the ASN team. Oh, there's Fiona. Wide awake, fantastic.
I was listening in and hearing mention of the school earlier, so did prick up my ears then, but I didn't have any information around that was of interest at that point, but we're here now.
Yeah, it's really just if you could briefly explain the ISP, the impact it's going to have, and what the plans are going forward, if you like, and the implementation timetable and so on.
Okay. So we have shared the presentation with committee services already, so we'll just run through it very quickly, but I probably will whiz through if that's okay, Councillor Cuthbert, because I know some members have already seen this. If we could move on to the the next slide, please. The Perth and Kinross Council Education and Learning Service are taking forward a proposal at this point to extend the number of intensive support provisions within our school estate. So that's primary and secondary provisions. And in the case of the current proposal for Kinross-shire, it is to look at a secondary provision, and I'll go on to explain a wee bit more, and I'm supported by Sarah Stephen, my colleague, to talk a bit more about what an ISP is about. Before we get into talking about what the provision itself is going to look like or will involve, I need to explain that the reason that we're out and discussing with so many groups and individuals at this point in time is that we have to undertake a statutory consultation to open an intensive support provision, because it's a stage of learning that is different from what's currently provided in the school. At the moment, the school is registered to provide secondary education only, and the intensive support provision constitutes special education statute. So hence we have to take forward an agreed process that comes from from legislation to garner views of the community and parents and children, young people and staff within the school to support our move forward with this. If we could move to the next slide. When we came out to provide the public meeting, we had a bigger group of staff that came with us, and you'll see here that that involved Karen Robertson, who's our business services service manager, and Karen manages much of the statutory consultation processes for us, and then there was a range of education staff involved. And again, if we move forward. The proposal itself is that we permanently establish the intensive support provision at Kinross High School from January 2026. And the reason that it's specifically January 2026 is that we have the statutory consultation process takes quite some time. And also we're out at this point in time when we'll have concluded the public consultation element of this. We also have some input after that from Education Scotland, and following that we will produce a report that we need to publish to make available to the public for a period of 3 weeks before we can move forward with asking our Learning and Families Committee to agree the proposal to open the provision permanently. That will mean that we won't be able to take this forward to committee until the November committee, hence the length of time that it will take. If we could move forward again. The proposal to provide the intensive support provision is based in terms of supporting our vision as a council, where we want everybody in Perth and Kinross to be a place where everyone can live life well, free from poverty and inequality. And it's particularly that final point there in terms of inequality that we hope to address by providing an intensive support provision which will provide special education for children with complex additional support needs close to their home communities. And that will also support our corporate plan priority around supporting our children and young people to grow up safe, respected, well educated and confident to be able to realise their full potential. If we can move to the next slide. The development of the level of education that we're discussing here, which is our intensive level education, which is deemed to be special education, is based on legislation. We have a duty as a council to provide education for children and young people at to meet the additional support needs that they have, and that's based on legislation from the 2004 Support for Learning Act, Education Additional Support for Learning Act. If we move to the next slide. What we know about the need of additional support, or a need for additional support for learning at delivery in Perth and Kinross is that our population of children with additional support needs continues to grow. You'll see from this graph here, which is taken from the pupil census information that's gathered on in September every year, that the blue line shows the Perth and Kinross level, and what you can see there is that the number of children and young, well, the percentage of children and young people with additional support needs has continued to grow from 2013 through to the last census, which was in September 2024. What we know is that we previously our levels were higher than Scotland as a whole. However, what we know now is that is increasingly, the gap between the two is increasingly narrowing, and in fact that the overall number for Scotland as a whole is now exceeding what our levels are in Perth and Kinross. However, it still remains pretty close in terms of that. If we go to the next slide, what we know is that although that the number of children and young people with additional support needs in Perth and Kinross, and that sits around 7,000 young people at the moment, require additional support. Most of those children will be requiring additional support at a much lower level than what we're looking at in terms of the provision we're suggesting to open in Kinross High School. Most children and young people are supported at stage 1, which is their universal provision, which is provided by class teachers. So that's adaptations that can be made within the classroom to be able to meet their needs. And then there are a range of other supports that are provided by Perth and Kinross Council to provide support at both additional level and enhanced level within mainstream classrooms before we are at a stage where we're looking at a young person requiring such specialist specific education as is required in an intensive support provision. And to give you a bit of context, we have around 330 to 350 children within Perth and Kinross who are provided with education at an intensive level at this point in time, compared with we have 18,000 young people who are in the education system as a whole. If we move to the next slide. So at the moment that 330 odd young people are provided with education in 15 different schools. That includes provision of intensive support provision education within 9 primary schools, which you'll see on the left-hand side of the slide, and within 5 secondary schools and 1 all-through school. People will be really clear to see that there is not a provision within the Kinross-shire area at this point in time, and hence why we're bringing forward this proposal to look to provide provision for children and young people closer to their home than have to travel into Perth or into the surrounding areas to be able to get the level of education that's required for their additional support needs. We could move forward, please. What we currently have is a number of young people who live in the Kinross-shire catchment with multiple and complex needs who have to travel to a secondary intensive support provision, and in respect of all 3 of those young people, that's within Perth City. From August 2025, we are planning to have 10 children who live within the catchment of Kinross High School who will have to access intensive support provision in a primary school in one of the other areas. Now, we recognise that the need for an intensive support provision in a Kinross-shire primary school is a very pressing need, and it's within the programme of work that we're looking to take forward. At this point in time, the capacity within all of the schools within this area is quite stretched, and the capacity, there wouldn't be building space available to be able to take that forward. However, we have the commitment of the Learning and Families Committee who have agreed to this consultation to progress to look at what the options are to be able to resolve that. So that will be and one of the next steps within our action plan to take this forward. In the interim, what we hope to do is to be able to address the gap within the current provision in Kinross High School to ensure that we've got that level of provision provided within that facility. If we move to the next slide. Sarah, am I over to you here?
You are on the next slide yet. No, I'm not. Sorry if you're not still you.
It's still me. So in terms of the establishment of the provision is, I think I probably covered this partly in some of the input I've given already. It is to expand and extend the provision of intensive support within Perth and Kinross as a whole. It is, but it's particularly to meet the projected pupil needs of the children within the Kinross-shire area, and to enable them to be able to access support as close to home as possible, reducing the need for us to be or the need for them to be accessing transport to travel quite some distance into Perth to be able to access it. We know that that has been a barrier for some of our young people who feel very strongly that they want to remain within their own community, close to their families, close to their friends that they may play with out with school, and close to their siblings that may be attending a mainstream school. So the more that we can do to help our young people to be part and parcel of their community is a significant driver for taking forward what we're proposing today. Move to the next slide now.
Take a breath.
So what we want to give is a flavour of what an intensive support provision is. So it is an educational specialist setting, so it's a different stage of education, which is obviously separate to what we call the presumption of mainstream. And the approach then looks at a small group of a class that then has quite a bespoke environment, a bespoke curriculum, and a high staffing ratio. In terms of looking at the curriculum, it tends to be highly responsive to the individual needs of the pupils or the children and young people within there, that has really key focuses on our key focus within our ISPs, which is connected to health and wellbeing, life skills, literacy and numeracy, and those wider aspects around connections to the community. It still has, in the same way as mainstream education, what we call BGE or broad general education, which is young people within S1 to S3 in a senior phase, which is young people within S4 to 6. But that very much focuses on the development of skills and independence, whilst looking at opportunities of attainment and wider achievement. Because of the complexity of the additional support needs, it does work really closely with wider partners, and they are more directly involved with our young people within the intensive support provision. Currently, our intensive support provisions have a link speech and language therapist that supports ensuring that the environment and provision of education aligns to the needs of our young people. There's also wider connection with services like occupational therapy and social work. When we're talking about social work, that tends to be involvement from the child and disability team in terms of supporting families to have the right support for their young people. There's also a significant focus in terms of key stages of transition to make sure that it's right for the young people, and they really think about ensuring that those enhanced transitions take place as early as possible, supporting that transition between primary 7 into S1, but also then from S3 onwards, looking at what does that support need to look like in terms of post-school and involvement with wider services around that. Within the senior phase, the curricular offer tends to be looking at actually what is the lifelong skills and needs for the young people, and they really start to scope out what that longer term support might look like when they're going into post-school education. Next slide, please. So the profile that's commonly within ISPs, it's important to note that obviously each child is looked at, or young person is looked at on an individual basis, but we tend to have obviously a set criteria in terms of the combination of what that can look like. In terms of that tends to be quite specific learning or cognitive difficulties that lead to the requirement of quite significant adaptations to either the environment and the curriculum collectively together, which then really does then focus on a very elaborate different curriculum being provided that wouldn't be able to be provided within mainstream. There is a lot of focus in terms of what that physical environment looks like for young people, really taking account of the sensory sensitivities that are often common and ensuring that we're looking at the development of a low stimulus environment. And again, thinking about that aspect around life skills, we really are thinking about ensuring that there's a real focus within language communication and the development of skills to enable young people to communicate effectively and have their needs and wants displayed. Next slide, please. We have developed a SWAY that's been made available to people to give sort of an interpretation of what that looks like across our current 15 ISPs. And what is available within that SWAY is a range of different photographs of what the physical environment looks like, alongside different types of support and what that could look like for young people. And that can be made available to anybody that is looking to have access to that. Next slide, please.
It might be an idea if you send that out to the community councils or through Lee.
Absolutely.
Are you almost finished? Because we're looking to a bit early tonight if possible. Just because it's a lovely day.
It is very lovely. No, I agree. I suppose we're just trying to give you the flavour and as much of a picture as possible. So I'll be very quick here. So in terms of looking at where the ISP is going to be placed, I'm not sure how familiar people are with the school building, but the green area is where the main provision will be. And the blue area will be within the support department, the support for learning department as it currently stands as a shared area. Next slide, please. So this is what it will then include within that blue and green area. There'll be 2 classrooms, a sensory room, a life skills room, a medical room and a personal care room, and an outside area that's specific for the provision alongside some of the young people who receive enhanced support. The provision will accommodate up to 16 pupils, 8 in each class. Next slide, please. Over the next 2 slides, it's just describing what the educational benefits will be. If you've seen the proposal and the feasibility study, you'll have seen this, but it's really just really highlighting the fact that it will have better connection to the community, to home, to peers, and ultimately feel more inclusive in respect to them being able to attend their local school. Next slide, please. And similarly to the benefits for the young people in respect to parents, again, it comes through the same lens around feeling better connected, being able to then access and understand the support and context more easily, and being able to participate in some of the engagement within the school, and for example, being able to collect your child if they're unwell much more easily. Next slide, please.
Sarah, will I finish this off from here?
Absolutely.
So much of this information has already been reiterated. The statutory consultation process sits within a legal framework, and we have a range of consultees, and you'll see what some of the process is on there. And the committee services do have the slides, therefore we can send them out, and I won't go into that in any more detail. But if we could go to the next slide. What you'll see here is some snippets from the Perth and Kinross Council website, with a clear indication of how we can actually take some feedback in terms of the proposal. We have undertaken a public meeting, we've undertaken a staff meeting, and we're currently consulting with children and young people in the secondary school and within feeder primary schools for those children who are in primary 5 and 6 and 7. Parents within those schools of children of that age have also been invited and informed of the consultation. In addition to taking feedback either today and in these meetings, we're also able to take feedback through online mechanism. There is a channel within the web page which you can link into and provide your feedback through that, or by email, or indeed in any form of written feedback that you want to provide. That really concludes our presentation today. I think it's over now to you in terms of if you've got any questions for us. We're very happy to try to answer that.
Okay, just to say that I'm incredibly enthusiastic about this. I think it's really important. We've got children from Kinross-shire being taxied up to Errol, for example. I'm very keen that we should get the primary school moving as soon as possible. I think Fianna's aware of that. I think this is a big step forward. It allows parents to have their kids in the locality they live in. Up till now, there's been nothing south of Perth, so Auchterarder is also on the list, I think, coming at some point. So it's hugely encouraging, which is why I brought it here, so you all know what's going on. Do you have any questions? It's pretty comprehensive, that. No? Any comment?
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
It's a great idea.
Great idea.
Absolutely superb.
Yeah, you have enthusiasm here.
It seems long overdue, actually, wasn't it?
Indeed.
Yes,
no, thank you very much for the positive words there. It's good to know that there's good community support for this.
Okay, yes, you're right.
Just a quick, yeah, thanks very much for the work with this. I did get a chance with the convener, John Revick, to visit Tulloch Primary School ISP unit, and I have to say, it wasn't just the setup and everything that, it was a difference it was making with the kids' lives. You know, and there was one of the kids there when we were there who was making such great progress over a long time. He was starting to join the odd class in the mainstream education, and it's that difference this type of unit can make. And you know, just thanks for the work, and it's absolutely brilliant to see this coming here to the high school, and fingers crossed soon within a local primary school.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Indeed. Okay, thank you very much for coming. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Stay and watch if you want. But
no, you're okay. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your meeting. Thanks.
Oh, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, for the next one, I'm going to pass across to Richard. This is the Kinross tourism strategy.
Yeah. Dave's just introduced it, but I'll introduce Stephen. Stephen McDonald, Economic Development Manager, Tourism and Culture. Is this a competition with officers to see who can get the longest job
The longer it exists, actually. Yeah, that changed about 3 months into my role here, so it's now business, place and investment.
Shorter. It got shorter.
But they've still got three things. At least I'll win something.
Yeah. Stephen, over to you.
So what I was going to suggest in the interest of time, because I'm just going to verbal update, maybe to present the tourism strategy and the culture strategy together, because there's quite a lot of crossover.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity to come along and speak about firstly the tourism strategy. I didn't share in advance because it's going to our Economy and Infrastructure Committee at the end of this month, so I'll be publicly available then, but I'm happy to kind of give you, a broad introduction. Sorry?
28th.
28th. Yes, absolutely. So it's a bit of a refresh of what we had previously, given all the changes that have happened over the last few years. So we're kind of building on that, and it's been developed after a few months of consultation, including we had a session here in Kinross in this building, which was very well attended by local tourism businesses and communities. So that was very positive. We've had sessions with elected members and also a range of tourism businesses, providers and businesses across the whole of Perth and Kinross. So hopefully it should reflect where we're at. To give a little bit of context in terms of how important tourism is within Perth and Kinross, we get 2.3 million visits per annum. 2.8 nights is the average length of stay. There is over 8,000 employees employed within the tourism sector, 685 businesses, and a total economic impact of 641 million. So, it's one of, if not, one of our most important economic sectors. So, one that we need to work hard to retain our performance, but, we also want to grow it as well. And we have economic development. So, our primary purpose is to support and grow the number of people who've got access to a wide range of jobs within tourism. In terms of our markets, fairly typical to kind of central Scotland. 68% are domestic, that's for overnight stays, and 32% are international. A quarter of those come from USA, and the rest are kind of mostly Europe. But there's obviously other parts of the world, including Australia as well, where we get visitations from. Now we've pulled this action plan together It's kind of twofold really. So Emily obviously gave a presentation on some of the stuff that we're already doing, and that had a really local focus on it, which was really positive. But that's all delivered within local within existing budgets, and it's really important that we capture that stuff because it's really good. But also the fact that we're constantly reviewing and we impact on the effectiveness of all these campaigns. And I think it's fair to say, this move towards digital and influencers and bloggers and stuff, but took a bit of a stab in the dark at it, but just to change things up. But it's been really good so far. So we're kind of constantly looking at that, but that's within existing budgets. But I think to elevate this strategy up, and as I say, we're economic development, so we want to increase the number of businesses and increase the number of jobs within the sector. We're pitching ideas within this action plan that we don't have any funding for, but I think it's really important that we start developing those propositions so we are ready to access any funding that becomes available, and that would be public sector funding, but any private sector funding that may become available as well. Also on the horizon is the visitor levy as well, which we took to our Economy and Infrastructure Committee. We took a paper back in February, which gave us approvals to start early engagement on a visitor levy. Now, you've probably seen some of the coverage across the country. Edinburgh is the kind of first adopter of a visitor levy, so that's an overnight charge on a charge on overnight stay. Edinburgh went with 5% on up to 7 nights. A lot of local authorities are now kind of falling in behind that, and we are fairly typical in terms of our timescales. I think it's fair to say there's a wide range of views out there on the visitor levy, so it's important we do that proper engagement. Now, that engagement will be formally launched at the beginning of June, so we thought it made sense to take our tourism strategy and action plan, so we could say this is the kind of activity we'd like to support, because the rationale behind the visitor levy is that any money raised would be reinvested in projects, activities, interventions that enhance the tourism experience, but also protect kind of local communities from the impacts of tourism, particularly in kind of key hotspot areas as well. So that will formally be launched, that engagement, at the beginning of June. So expect quite a bit of activity around that. It's really important we capture lots of all the relevant views, both from businesses and communities. The process for that levy, then we'll write that up over the summer, and that'll be taken back to council in December, and we'll present our potential visitor levy scheme, and it'll be up to council to decide whether that's something that they want to go ahead with or not. But I'll park that because that's kind of as a potential source of investment, but we're looking at all kinds of investment, and as I said, it's important we have kind of projects ready to go. So there's 4 different pillars that we're framing the actions under. The first one is area promotion and destination marketing. So we want to drive up visitation from identified audiences, increasing day visitors, but also overnight stays, as well as the length of stay and the visitor spend as well. So I won't go through all the actions because I'm conscious of time, and this will be publicly available, but we are looking at a destination marketing organisation. So pulling resource together, because currently it's predominantly local authority who are doing a lot of this, and we're a very small team. So there was a great focus on the type of activity that happens locally as part of Emily's presentation, but I suppose it's how that then fits into the overall plan for the whole of Perth and Kinross, and we'll get far more impact if we can join all these things together. So if we join Kinross-shire Perth and further afield, we want to try and bring people to the area and make them stay longer, because Kinross, from the data, does very well with day visitors. That's probably a strength and a weakness in terms of its location, but encouraging overnight stays and more spend, we need to probably join up the dots with that. So it'll be a big focus on area promotion and destination marketing. Investment in infrastructure is something we recognise is incredibly important. So we want to attract investment to enhance the visitor experience in the destination, as well as manage the impact on our local communities. So I think it's fair to say there's been quite a bit spent in infrastructure, particularly Lochleven and Heritage Trail and stuff over the years, and also RSP Lochleven as well. But we can certainly enhance that, and I say link up a lot of these things. I think that's something that very much came through when we did the engagement session here, that walking and cycling and linking up all these path networks is something that would really enhance the experience for people coming here. So as I say, I think putting in place infrastructure that would enable that to happen, but as well as signage and wayfinding and whatnot would be something that would definitely help. Visitor infrastructure as well, particularly in areas of Highland Perthshire that have had high numbers of tourists, which is a great thing, but as we know, that comes with its pressure sometimes as well. So, we need to make sure we've got in place that infrastructure that supports that. So that could be toilets, it could be showering facilities, cycling, whatever it might be. That's something that we need to look at, as well as general capital and public realm improvements as well. There's been quite a bit of money in Perth spent on our public artwork and lighting and whatnot, and that's something I think we could aspire to secure investment out with Perth, and certainly in our kind of rural towns and areas as well. Market development, I've probably touched a little bit on this, but I think the challenge for us is collaboration and packaging a lot of experiences and itineraries together. And again, that's something that Emily touched on, but I always think our role as an economic development function, there's lots of great tourism businesses and attractions out there, and they're doing their thing and they're doing great. So it's where's our role in the whole picture? And I think there's a lot we can do to do joint marketing and pulling these itineraries together, which again then impacts on that kind of increased dwell time and increased spend, hopefully. And the last kind of pillar that we have is industry growth and resilience. We need to make sure that we're supporting our businesses as well. So where possible, we have our kind of general business support programs through the Business Gateway, for example, but certainly in previous roles I've kind of worked on securing investment to develop a bit more sector specific business support programs. So things that now focus on the tourism sector and particular issues and challenges that they have around recruitment. Transport's been mentioned as well, accommodation for staff. These are the things that we need to look at. So putting in place those kind of more specific dedicated business support programs is something that we want to do. So we want to increase the number of startup businesses working in tourism. We want to support the existing businesses to grow, and if we get more jobs, then that's fantastic, and that gives more opportunities for local people. So as I say, that's kind of where we're at, and I don't want to go into too much detail because conscious time, and it's going to our kind of economy committee at the end of this month. I'll quickly touch on the culture strategy as well, and that's probably in a similar place. It's going to a different committee this time, but culture acts as a significant driver for tourism, but also education, learning, participation as well. You will know there's been significant spend in Perth City over the last few years in culture. The museum being the obvious one, but theatre and concert hall, creative exchange, and it's great to see that's a really positive impact in terms of the number of businesses operating, but also just that kind of general feel within the city centre. We know city and town centres are changing. As retail continues to contract, culture is going to play an ever-increasing role. So that's something that we want to do. The culture strategy was developed in 2023, and when I came into post, I think it's fair to say it's probably not. We need a closer, I think, eye on this to review its effectiveness and also to kind of progress some of the actions and see what's still relevant. So that's something that we as a team have picked up in the last few months. But it's very much focused on placemaking, and there is specific reference in here to Kinross and Kinross-shire, so that's something we definitely want to look at, and I think replicate a lot of the stuff that's happened maybe within Perth City out within our kind of rural towns as well, and Kinross being the obvious one. So just again some of the examples that we want to look at. Some of the
which is that going to?
So it's been to housing and wellbeing.
Okay.
It's in September, I think it is. Double check the date just to confirm that with you. But that again, similar to the tourism strategy, there's a range of activities that within the culture strategy. So we're looking at cultural hubs. The creative exchange in Perth is something that's worked very well in terms of encouraging creative industries to start up and giving them that space and that place to collaborate. I think that's something we can probably replicate in our rural towns.
Where you do that in Kinross?
Well, that's what we need to look at, and I'd be keen to tie that into the library review as well, and what's happening there. But we can also look at some of our vacant units as well, and the vacant units in every town across the area. So that's something that we can potentially look at. That's a good thing to have. Yeah. But I'm sure if there's a demand and if there's a kind of a group of creative artists, creative makers in the area, I'm sure we can work with them to kind of create that kind of collaborative space. Events is something we've touched on, so I won't go into too much detail on that. Public art is something that we're really keen to look at. Perthshire box office, so something that's been started up through the culture strategy. So that gives events a platform to sell tickets on. That's kind of ever evolving and expanding, and it's doing good stuff, but that helps local events organisations to kind of take that burden off them in terms of selling tickets, but also the marketing element as well. We also have our UNESCO City of Craft status, which is a really strong global brand, and that ties into the kind of creative makers stuff again. And again, that's something I'm really keen to expand out across the area. But as I say, this is another report that's kind of going to committee, being reviewed at the moment. It'll be publicly available. The two are kind of intertwined, I think, as well as the stuff that Emily's talked about in terms of place marketing. So as I kind of quick gallop through the stuff that we're doing, more than happy to kind of continue to engage and take anything specific to the committee as appropriate, but happy to take any comments or questions you might have.
Just can I just thanks very much for that. It's really good. Just from a tourism perspective, one of the big tourist attractions in Kinross, I think, that gives us potentially overnight stays is the backstage. With the music that's really successful. How does the tourism strategy help something like that or get?
Well, I think we need to sit down and speak to them and say what are the opportunities, and evening economy links up with food and drink, and it links up with accommodation. So we need to make sure that we're trying to support that kind of whole circle really, because that's how we then encourage people to stay overnight, and as well as marketing and whatnot. But it's difficult to say maybe an individual basis, but that's something we'd be really keen to go out and. I say the team, there's one person in the team, we're really small, service, but that's something I think we're really keen that we secure investment and kind of grow an overall destination marketing brand that could maybe help with this stuff, as well as attract accommodation providers.
So would it just be with David Mandel? Would it just be us speaking to him and just
absolutely. I think you can understand what are the opportunities and what are the challenges, then we can leave that into what we're doing.
Just being official because I'm going for a bus. I think that the levy is a great idea if you've got an area which is vibrant and whatever, but if you've got an area which isn't vibrant, like Glenfarg, actually taxing people to come here could deter people further. So I think we have to watch, and we've got a hotel in the middle of Glenfarg which had change of use to flats and whatever, which could actually be a vibrant tourist attraction. It had a great folk club and stuff like that. So other policies really need to be taken into account as well as the.
Yeah, just quickly that one. Yeah, absolutely, and we recognise the pros and cons of the levy, and that's our job. I think over the next 6 months is to capture all these views and present something to council that gives them an informed picture to make that decision on.
Doesn't that 5% levy also the possibility of reducing people's spend by 5% locally?
I don't know. You've got your own views on that probably, and I think that
really, I'm just because people,
I don't want to.
So deep,
I don't want to give an opinion on that in a moment. I think that's what we have to find out in evidence. I think. No, I'd say.
We have one specific, and so we've created a local place plan, which is going through planning to hopefully get registered. We spent a lot of time on a local place plan. It'd be great for you to read. It's about tourism and how it impacts our little villages and infrastructure and what we hope. So it'd be great to partner on that because that is then moved into a community action plan of how we can deliver. A specific one, I was just thinking of culture, you're going to kill me now. The former Blarington Primary School, we're trying to do a community asset transfer on, but we don't need the schoolhouse. We've got some local artists who would like to do it, but it's actually getting the momentum going.
Yeah.
And we've tried, and we are still in discussions, and we're taking it through the trust. But it's got the car park.
Yeah.
It's got lots of little rooms, and I saw it ideal as little artist studios.
Yeah.
But we don't get a funder. We will not get a funder to fund that, right? Because it's going to be making some money from it. So funders want to.
Well, I think that's where you maybe want to link into our team. We want a suite of these projects. So because we know when
Because you already own it, you know, you own the school.
Yeah.
It's your asset. But it's your asset, so it's, you know, we're just saying.
We know when, we should, and we do know when funds become available. So I'm just giving one example. So there's a rural tourism infrastructure fund which supports infrastructure projects in rural areas. It's only the local authority can apply to that, but we can do that in partnership with local communities. But there'll be other opportunities as well. So we don't want to miss out on these. I think
What I'm
that's
saying is, can we have a follow-up conversation?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it would be a lost thing if we then, the school then couldn't do the transfer.
Yeah.
And it went to flats like the hotel.
Yes, yeah, I'm happy to. I'll follow up with you after the meeting.
Yes.
Brilliant. Any further questions?
If I could have a chat with you as well about stuff going on in Cleach, that would be brilliant.
Are you going to brand it as Kinross-shire and Perth?
I'm not going to pass comment on that.
We've been there and we've done that.
Okay, no,
Brilliant. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks very much to both of you for coming along, and it's really good to be here with this stuff. And there's so much with the tourism stuff. You really are, you know, high profile just now, without a doubt, and which is what we need. We definitely have in Kinross a lot of room tourism wise, I think.
Yeah.
To grow. So
we want to stay across. Some areas are stronger than others.
Yeah. Brilliant. I'll pass back to Dave.
Hey, look, don't ask, don't get.
That's the whole purpose of this meeting. Thank you very much. You're welcome to stay, but feel free to finish it. We are almost finished. It's just one last item. That's give us a verbal update on the committee forward plan.
Yeah, so based on the session that we had last month, trying to plan ahead to see what the agenda will look like for September and for December to give members a bit of forewarning and officers time to prepare as well. We identified a few pieces of work that seemed relevant in terms of the scheme of administration for this particular committee, and they were a forest and woodland strategy, which was going to climate change and sustainability committee on the 5th of November. Structures asset management strategy, which is around bridges and such like, which is going to our economy and infrastructure committee on the 19th of November. And the strategic housing investment plan, which is going to housing and social wellbeing committee on the 26th of November. So I've been in touch with the relevant officers around these. Now, the view from the officers dealing with the forest and woodland strategy is that there's nothing specific for Kinross-shire, so you don't think it would merit any time on the agenda because you wouldn't get much out of it.
What do you think? I would have thought. You want to talk about Blair Adam? I don't know if that's out with Kinross.
Technically, some of it or most of it is certainly the.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, we've got the biodiversity village at Crooked Evan now. We're trying to grow the orchards and everything else. And
is that covered by the woodland strategy?
I don't know. I don't have, without having seen it, I don't know whether it's like acres or.
I can ask the question. I didn't know any of this, so I can go back to Joanna, who's looking after that.
Yeah. So if you would like to look at our local place plan, which planning have, then all of our areas that where we want to increase biodiversity are mapped. We were asked to map them all. We are going to meet with the Green State or Grow World, whatever they are, and bring all our bloom to because we have a very, very big focus on retaining our woodland and growing it. We don't have a lot, but.
Yeah, Milnathorpe's got an orchard as well, I think. And Port Moat, you've got the woodlands on the Michael Bruce Way and so on. So it may be relevant, but maybe you want to ask what more specifically what it is. If we communicate on that, then I
do that. Would be relevant. So it would definitely be.
I don't know if they're talking about big, plantation woodlands and native woodland growth, and it's kind of PK wide and it's quite strategic. I don't know the detail. I can ask Joanne.
The other thing we often get built in on the consultation is, you probably do as well, the forestation up in the Ochills.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've got that, and then down at the back of Blaringon, the forestation there. So I don't know whether it's where
I can ask from Fleece Hills.
Fleece Hills. There's a lot going on up there. We often get, what would you like up there?
And with regard to the strategic housing investment plan, currently there aren't any sites identified in Kinross-shire, and the onus is on registered social landlords and private developers to nominate sites. It's not really for this committee as such. So again, they didn't feel at this stage
It's quite a strong point of view here that we should be seeing some social housing in villages. I mean, the fact there's no sites here is probably indicative that the council doesn't own anything. Most of it's been sold off.
I think we had a couple of good years where we had a lot of social housing built.
Well,
and I think we've just hit a point where there's nothing on the forward planner, but we do need to find things on the forward.
Yeah, but it's not in the villages as such. It's mainly Kinross and Norththorpe.
But that would be a or an LD.
There is a proposal that's in Plough Mill, 29 houses that got up at Gartwinton Hotel. That's got social housing part of it.
It'll be for this kind of what's projected to be delivered in this next calendar year, and that may not be on the projected list.
It won't be, it's not extended.
Yeah. So maybe the following year.
Still being decided. It was decided at committee, but then the section 75 is still being debated.
So that's it with the scope of the strategic housing investment plans. Future sites aren't yet in the LDP, as far as I understand it. I can ask the question, Kevin.
Again, our LPP, which was submitted, will have what the view of the villages were.
Okay.
So you'll have an input from us.
Yeah. Okay. I can follow that one up. The others that are happy to come, the structured asset management strategy, which is the one that looks at bridges, aqueducts, etc. The senior engineer, Derek, is happy to come along, but he'd be grateful for any specific questions or queries that members might have around any of those structures in Kinross-shire. You with your local knowledge will probably know more about that than I live here.
The one bridge out by you that keeps getting repaired.
I have several bridges out by me that keep getting repaired.
Well, that sort of information would be helpful for Derek before committee in September. So what we could do is email out in advance and ask for specific concerns, issues, ideas, so that Derek can have that before committee.
Yep.
Okay. Sue Terrace and Stuart Skeen, who deal with emergency planning and community resilience, are quite happy to come along to talk about how the council, what the council's duties are around emergency planning, community resilience, and how they're discharging that. And happy to have a conversation about what more could be done in Kinross-shire to support that.
That's well worth doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know our village halls, we are looking through the trust at the SSEN grants that just opened up around resilience to get generators so that, bad winters or when people can't, there was a power cut that was out for 3 days. The village halls are our hub. That's the only asset we do have.
Yeah.
And a bus, but
of course. Two other items that we could put on the agenda. There was a request to look at the data around multiple deprivation and ACORN as it pertains to Kinross-shire. So what the stats tell us about issues with poverty, inequality, crime, access to housing, access to services, and what that looks like for Kinross-shire as a ward compared to Perth and Kinross as a whole, or Scotland as a national comparator as well. If that's still something that you would like to have a look at, then we can.
Under deprivation, we finished a commitment. Our area was very deprived as regards to transport. So can you look at that as part of?
Yeah, the index of multiple deprivation covers crime.
Yes. So we were given the numbers by a consultant we were working with on that, but it would be good to look at it because transport, it's great what Glen Park have done for us, but we still got a few, Carnbo, for example, still doesn't have anything. It would.
So they're based on data zones, so you can split it down by, I think it's 450 households per data zone, so it's quite small.
Yeah.
It's not particularly helpful for rural areas because of how SAMD works. That's where ACORN can stay. So we'll come up with something that gives you a broad view of issues around inequality in Kinross-shire.
I'd be very interested to see the difference between ACORN and SIMD.
Yeah.
But you can't compare the two because they look at different things.
I know, but just to get a feel, because the SIMD is used all over the place for allocating money.
Because it's free.
But ACORN is actually far more accurate in a rural community like this one.
Or we have to pay for a license and we have to be careful about how much of that we can share. Because you can't identify individual households, it's that detailed.
Yeah. Wow. No, I appreciate that.
But if you could, anything you could will certainly help us when we look for funding to help support buses and things.
No, that would be interesting.
And the last one that I can mention is there's a paper going to Housing and Social Wellbeing Committee on the 11th of June with proposals for further rounds of community funding. And I would imagine that would be of interest to the members as well. So
I think so. That's the SIP.
By then we'll know what the timescales are, what the available funding is, So if depending upon how that goes to committee on the 11th of June, it might be a useful item to add in
That's like
September.
the community investment fund and the participatory budgeting stuff.
And we could tie the green living's going to go through a different route. Well, it's going to cross over a bit, but we can.
Yes,
that in.
hopefully by September, certainly we should know what's going to happen across those three.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Sorry, but to go back to the housing sector, and I know this kind of crosses over a few different streams, but is there a way to kind of bring something to committee to look at housing needs within there?
There'll be a housing needs assessment of some sort. I'm not sure when the last one was done. Yeah, okay.
And
there you go, 2023.
But sorry, we had to do that as part of our LPP.
Yeah,
I thought it was done then.
The one for Kinross-shire, the last one I can sign in the public domain was 2023. And I think but they must have be redoing it for LDP3 for they said they were going to be doing it.
I'll find out who's the relevant officer and ask what the practicalities of that would be. For is it the 18th of September, I mean? I think it is. My goalkeeper's right.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
that's good. One thing I was going to raise, there is no AOB on here, but I'm going to raise it as an AOB. The local action partnership is winding up, and that leaves a bit of a sort of democratic deficit in terms of inequality. This committee is not geared, or is the scheme of administration doesn't look at things like inequality. I think it should, and I'm just seeking your views, because if you're in agreement that it should include inequalities and so on, then we can bring topics related to that, and I can get the scheme of administration updated. I'd be interested in views, and then if Neil, I think that's Neil, it's online. It's showing us a phone number, whether anyone here has got a view on that.
I don't know much about the local action partnership. Is that the meet? I know the Growing Stronger Communities group, which I broke up.
That's different.
Yeah.
Right.
Trudy Duffy was on it. It was mainly focused on allocating grants and things, I think, latterly, but it was involved during the pandemic. It was distributing things, but in essence, it's winding up, and this committee doesn't have because I see it as a bit of a whole in terms of we're looking at the whole of Kinross-shire, all the issues related to it. That isn't comment specific, so people are happy with that. Yeah. Okay. So we'll minute that, and then I'll make the approach to officers. Is there anything else anyone wants to raise? No? Right. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you all.
For 5 minutes. I was aiming for past. Really. Richard spoke too long.
If we had that wee chess clock here, right, the thing at your top, I think Dave's time we used them. That's what we're going to do. Come in next time. Chess clock.
Yes, okay,
Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Audrey. Thanks, Magda.